Bore da pawb, croeso i'r pumed sesiwn Sbotolau Hinsawdd, a diolch i chi am ymuno'r sesiwn heddiw. So good morning all, welcome to the 5th Climate Spotlight session, and many thanks to you for joining today. So just a couple of things to mention before we start the session. We are recording today, so just to make you aware of the privacy policy that was circulated to you with the meeting invite, so just to let you know the session is being recorded. This session is being facilitated as part of the WLGA's Climate Change Support Programme. So that's a programme that's funded by Welsh Government, and the programme is set up to support Welsh councils in preparing for a net zero public sector by 2030. So today's session topic, really looking forward to this, is a win-win decarbonisation collaboration. So bringing education and energy benefits to communities. I'm looking forward to hearing from our two speakers. I've got two speakers today. First of all, we've got Dan McCallum, who's the Chief Officer of Awel, Aman, Tawe and Egni Co-op. We've also got Prif, who is the Net Zero Carbon Project Manager from Pembrokeshire County Council as well. So welcome, croeso everyone. I think that's everything I needed to say really. So then happy to hand over to our speakers, please. Diolch. Thank you.
Diolch. Diolch pawb. So fi'n gobeithio pawb yn gallu weld hwn. Hope everyone can see this. So I'll speak in English today. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes, yeah, I can see
that.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Yeah.
So I work for a charity in Neath Talbot at Awel, Aman, Tawe, and we're sort of driven by trying to tackle obviously climate change and community resilience and sustainability in Wales. Just trying to click to my next slide. And we do that by developing renewable energy projects and educational projects, as Dewi said. We've set up two main co-ops, Awel Co-op, a community wind farm, and Egni, which is the topic that I'm talking about today. And within that, then within Egni especially, we're running an education programme, but we're also involved in quite a broad base of activities at a local level, developing the former school into Hubagors, energy advice, community transport, and we won't run quite an extensive arts programme as well, just looking at all different ways to engage people in climate change. This is our community turbines. It took a very long time to get this through, but they're up on Munud the Gwryd above Pontardawe now, and they were built in. They were constructed in 2017, and it's really those turbines which have underpinned our development since then. The turnover is about £1.4 million a year. Obviously, we've got to pay back the bank and our co-op members from that income, but the income into the charity from the turbines has been about £200,000 or £300,000 a year. So it's a really significant unrestricted income into our work, and that enabled us then to develop and set up Egni. We first worked on Egni in 2014, sort of copying really what a lot of English energy cooperatives had done on rooftop solar, and we developed a few sites in 2014, but really expanded it in 2019, 2020. On the back of the feed-in tariff, and we did another share offer then, raising £5 million in community shares. We contacted local authorities across Wales, and it really came down to individuals actually, and I guess timing as well, and capacity within the councils. But in particular, Newport, Pembrokeshire, and Swansea responded, and we worked very closely with them to install sites. And since then, and during that, we've installed a lot of sites, a mixture of schools, community buildings, some of which are owned by local authorities, sports facilities like the Geraint Thomas velodrome, and then some private businesses as well. Main partners, main local authorities that we've worked with so far, obviously a lot. This is a bit historic, but a lot with Newport, but an increasing amount obviously with Pembrokeshire. And Rhys is going to talk more about the tender process that they went through, that we were then appointed on the basis of that. One of our installs in Newport, and some very excited children. Some other installs again. And this is the education programme that we run. The children just love dressing up, and so we call it the Energy Warriors and make them solar capes. And every time we work in a school, we always seem to come back with at least one less cape, because the children just they want to hang on to them. And we also then work in partnership with another charity called Energy Sparks, which has got half-hourly data for all the schools, looking at gas if they're on it, electric, and also the solar generation if they've got solar panels. So it's a really good tool, which I think Rhys is going to talk more about. Not just from the energy manager's point of view, but from the children's point of view. They can see, if they do a campaign to turn all the lights off, that they can see an impact in the data. So it makes it meaningful, and it's cross-curricular, because they can obviously use that data in different topic areas like maths, to kind of inform those areas of work, and it makes it meaningful because it's based on their school. I was so pleased when I found about this data portal, because it's charity owned, so it's not private. So you haven't got that whole kind of intellectual property thing, or kind of selling something on behalf of a private company. It really makes it different, and it's very accessible. This is some of the more recent stuff that we've been doing. We were awarded £1 million through the Ynni Cymru scheme, partly on the basis of the match funding that Egni could provide through the solar installs, which we'd already funded. So we're able then to focus on batteries and charge points, and some interesting technology like this one, which is a Papilio unit made by a company called 3TI. So it's made from a recycled shipping container. It's 20 kilowatt solar on the roof, and then 12 charge points incorporated within underneath the roof. And this is put in the car park at Lliswerry Comp in Newport. It's a relatively expensive way of installing charge points, but it's definitely it can be literally delivered on the back of a lorry and put down on a site and then connected up. And on Lliswerry in particular, we already had solar panels there. We wanted to put more on the roof, but the structural survey failed on that new building. So actually, we had grid, but we didn't have anywhere to put more panels. So actually, in this location, a standalone site outside in the car park made a lot of sense. And we're just at the moment installing the batteries, which are solar edge batteries. So it's going to be really interesting to see to what extent we're able to load shift the solar generation into nighttime to meet the sort of base load there on schools. So we've had a big saving for our sites overall. Obviously closely linked to energy prices that sites are paying last year 257,000. Obviously it's going to be a lot less now because energy prices are coming down. But again, this is something we're kind of always wanting to look at in terms of how we achieve additional benefits. But as a not-for-profit, all of our surplus goes into educational projects anyway, and that itself can have a further carbon reduction impact. And this is what we trying to do, I think there is a sort of natural alignment between a co-op and the council, because they're both, we're principally driven by tackling climate change. The local authorities have got to report on their net zero targets for 2035. We are made up of the constitution of the co-op is about tackling climate change. There is no profit to be made. We have to repay our loans, but they're capped. So that model is very much, and we have to report on the social and environmental outcomes that we're achieving, which in our case are very much around education, but it could be different things. It could be fuel poverty, if the money was put into energy advice or something like that. But we feel that the education thing has worked really well, and it's something tangible that local authorities can then point to as well. I think as well, our model is predicated on making sure the panels perform over the 20 years of the installs. We have to repay our loans over that period, so we're incentivized directly to make sure the panels are working, that we clean them, and that we deal with any O&M issues that occur. So we've got automatic alerts into it's all solar edge systems that we install, sort of daily alerts on anything that's not working correctly, and then we commission annual inspections by an independent electrician, and then the 5-year EI electrical reports as well. And actually, we've just been awarded a new contract by Newport to do O&M on their own sites where the council owns their own solar installs. Again, and the councils do value that because they haven't got capacity to be doing that O&M work. So because we've then sort of specialised in that and take care over it, they've they went out to tender, but they awarded us that contract. So that's an interesting new development for us. And I think as a separate co-op as well, we're able to bring in match funding. Obviously, the money from Ynni Cymru, but our education officer again has brought in a range of different grants into the programme. And one example of that actually was the Energy Sparks, because we approached Welsh Government to get a Welsh translation of that, because obviously that's critical to work in Welsh schools. So that platform is now translated and available in Welsh. And I think, just this is something to think about for the future. We've worked we're members of the Community Energy Contact Group working with UK government, alongside Community Energy Wales and Community Energy England, which are the umbrella bodies. And under the local power plan and GB Energy, the direction of travel is that there's going to be significant amounts of money going into community energy and local authorities, principally around local Labour's commitment to increasing the size of the cooperative sector across the UK, and community energy is one of the principal ways of delivering that. And so, and one of the key things is going to be partnership between community energy and local authorities. And that's something that, obviously in the past has been quite difficult to get through for a range of different reasons, but we've been able to do it with Newport and Pembrokeshire. And we'd like to do it more across Wales, and ourselves working in partnership with different community energy groups in different areas of Wales. So for example, like I know Becca's on the call. I saw her earlier, but with Partneriaeth Ogwen up in Gwynedd, to be working with organisations like that, because there's no point us trying to develop an education programme in Gwynedd. It will make sense for us to be putting the funding for into an organisation like Partneriaeth Gwynedd and building that relationship with the local authority. And I think there's a practical thing that if Wales wants to maximise funding coming from the local power plan, it really has to develop those partnerships, because that's going to be a condition of the funding. From all the discussions that I've heard taking place, that's going to be key. And if we don't do it, England, areas of England are going to do it, where there already are strong partnerships, like in Plymouth, where there's a brilliant partnership between the co-op there, Plymouth Energy Co-op, and the council. Bath and West, who work very closely with their local authorities, Low Carbon Hub in Oxfordshire, and Repowering, who work with a number of councils in London. So we need to make these partnerships work and get them in place. Shared ownership, again, I just flag that up because it's something there's a lot of scope with, and at a UK level, there's consultation which is closing today to make that mandatory. So for large projects, wind farms and large solar schemes, to make an element of shared ownership with community energy compulsory. And again, there's potential cooperation partnerships with local authorities that can happen as part of that. We're involved in a couple of schemes locally in Neath Talbot, working with ESB, who are the Irish utility, and the local CVCs, the Councils of Voluntary Services, and also with another scheme with a big developer called Nadara, again working with the CVCs. NGED putting funding directly into schools, and should be awarding us grants again to help subsidise some of the solar installs in schools in Pembrokeshire and Newport. And these are some of the examples that of partnerships in England that are really worth looking at to see how they've done it. So I think that's all I had to say. Diolch yn fawr am gwrando. Thank you for listening, and very happy to answer questions afterwards. But I'll pass you on to Rhys.
Diolch yn fawr, Dan. Excuse me. Just hope that you can see that okay. Is that visible to all?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Rhys. I can see you. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr am y cyfle I siarad gyda chi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and what's been a very enjoyable project for me, and a very successful one, I think, for Pembrokeshire. So it started, our relationship with Egni started, I think, just as the feed-in tariffs were ending. Egni came to the then energy manager, Steve Keating, and said, look, we can apply now and install solar systems on your school, no cost to you, and we can take advantage of the feed-in tariffs, and that will then allow you to have kind of carbon-free energy in your schools. And that was done on 6 schools. And then about three and a half years ago now, we entered into a second phase with Egni. This was a different arrangement because the feed-in tariffs are no longer available. So it was us purchasing the PPA with them. And I suppose I was new to the council then and new to public authority, so I had very little experience of some of the procurement processes. So first thing we did was issue and establish a tender on sell to Wales. All this was new to me, so working with procurement and legal, etc. All that takes time, of course. And for someone with a kind of more technical project background, I found that to be quite frustrating, but of course, obviously necessary to have that governance in there. We had 4 bids from a variety of companies. Egni, I think, were the only community energy group, as I recall. And we weighted the bid not just on cost, but also on their capability. Obviously, we didn't want lots of hassle with our roofs, and some longevity, some companies that had been there for a while. And we also had quite a heavy weighting, well, a significant weighting actually, in the curriculum involvement. So we weren't interested in just purchasing energy. We were also very keen on the involvement of the company or the organisation within the classroom. So Egni was successful. They weren't the cheapest in terms of their cost per kilowatt hour, but what they offered was exemplar curriculum support, as Dan has alluded to. So in terms of the energy, it's a PPA agreement effectively. They lease the roof from us, and then we buy the energy from them. It's a kind of fixed rate which increases each year with CPI and 1%, and it's capped at the grid. So there's no disadvantage financially from the council to go down this road. We won't pay more than we pay EDF at the moment. And last year we were paying considerably less, about 30%. The spiked grid prices meant that the Egni price was about a third cheaper. It's over a 26-year term. And this first part to me was quite slow, quite frustrating, because you want to see stuff on the roof and you want to see the energy flowing. But it was certainly necessary, and it was a good learning curve for me. So the initial bit that I was involved in, moving on, was the scoping of various buildings. So we have around about 60 schools and about 6 leisure centres, some offices, although we haven't installed them there yet. So we were kind of looking at which roof were we going to install on, which building, and there's no hard and fast there. We were trying to do some of the larger schools first, because it's more bang for the buck for Egni and for all the other costs, the kind of fixed costs. I gathered half-hourly data and produced a kind of an energy heat map as per bottom right. That was a worthy exercise in itself, because you could understand when the energy is being used in our buildings, and primarily the schools, due to the influence of kitchens. It has a very AM bias, as you can see there, you know, the hours between 9 and 1. And then, of course, several months of the year are less heavily loaded due to summer loads and summer holidays, of course. The other thing to take from that heat map is I've only shown up to 5 o'clock, but you'll see that the kind of non-solar hours, if you wish, outside of between 9 and 7, there's still about a third to 20% of the overall energy demand on the school is outside of the kind of typical school hours. So the children don't contribute the majority to the load of the building. It's a lot of other things happening in our buildings, which of course we need to get hold of. We worked with Egni to get authorisation and the relevant permits, so asbestos checks. Egni look after the structural surveys. There's one happening today in one of our school. That only takes a few hours typically. And then we had to liaise with a solicitor and our solicitor regarding the legals, the licence to work, to allow Egni to go onto the site to work, the lease of the roof, and then the power purchase agreement. Egni and ourselves, Egni prepare most of those documents, and we kind of sign them off, as is the case with the RAMs. Egni really is, we're the client to Egni in some ways, and they look after all that kind of HSE documentation, which we obviously pass through to our colleagues. Egni are responsible for all the site work. So we don't get involved in that, although we take an active interest, of course. And then there's finally a handover with the site. So what we wanted to avoid is that, you know, there's another bit of kit that nobody quite understands from the school, understands what it does and how it all works. So there's quite an intimate relationship with the school throughout this process. So to date, we've done around about 750 kilowatts, and they range from some of the historic sites at 10 kilowatts to our largest to date is about 240. I think we've done nearly a megawatt hour this morning to date. And there's a mix of schools, and we've done a couple of leisure centres as well. So some of the schools and sites are quite complex in their energy. You can imagine there's a lot happening at leisure centres, for instance, and several of our schools and leisure centres have a gas-powered combined heat and power engine, and they've also got existing solar on them. So we have to work with Egni in terms of the metering, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's complex, but we need to be thorough, because what we don't want to do is be paying Egni for energy that we've generated from our on-site assets. And likewise, Egni wish to see the value of all the export from their site, from their assets. So there's a bit of metering there. That's a system called ORSIS, and once a quarter, the school will get a bill from ORSIS, and they also get their existing bill from EDF, which hopefully will be much reduced. So on site, we try to minimise the disruption. It's quite difficult at schools. We tend to focus on school holidays, as does lots of other maintenance tasks at schools. So there's we need to work with our colleagues in the maintenance department. We take a condition report so that nobody can point the finger before and after. And some of the sites, the access, just the nature of the school is quite difficult. You need scaffold access towers, and finding somewhere to place the inverters. This is at a leisure centre, so quite a large system, 160 kilowatts, that one on the bottom right. So you need a fair bit of wall space, or you have to take things outside, which adds to the cost and complexity. So that's worth thinking of. So the benefits then, once that's the systems have been installed, and they go in pretty quickly. They go in anywhere between a week to 3 weeks, I would say, even for the large systems. We've been very fortunate with the contractors that Egni use. But I think the 3 C's can be summed up in terms of carbon, curriculum, and the kind of cash. So carbon, of course, every kilowatt hour that we don't buy from the grid, we're currently saving 200 grams, 0.2 of a kilograms. So as the grid decarbonises, of course, that will diminish. But I think when the grid is carbon free, then we'll all have done our job anyway. So that's not a big concern. I'll jump to the cash. So as I said, depends what the grid price is. We're currently paying about 24p on average across EDF, across our sites, as most local authorities would be. Last year, we were paying Egni roughly the same price, but the grid price was 33. So some good savings there. And of course, there are some per unit levies that we don't pay Egni that we would pay if we buy that energy from the grid. So it also gives some certainty. So we saw the grid price spike during COVID. We saw it spike during the Ukraine war. It won't spike with Egni. It will track CPI, which of course can spike, but less so. And as I keep reminding some of my colleagues, you know, what the council signed up was for a net zero carbon climate emergency, and not a net zero cost. So whilst it doesn't cost us any money, you know, the savings can be significant and they could be fairly marginal, but that's not the primary driver of the climate emergency. And then the final, and I think the most positive outcome for me, has been the curriculum support. So Egni have a very energetic education officer, Jen. She goes into the classrooms if the school ask for this support. Some do quite vocally and some don't. She goes in and supports in a variety of activities. It may be just talking to the children about energy. I may also follow up with some general conversations about energy and the council and those kind of things. I'm a STEM ambassador, so I fold that into my visits to the school. We use Energy Sparks quite heavily, which has been very useful. And we also are aiming to provide some events at leisure centres as well. So we can engage with the leisure centre staff, but we can also engage with the clients of the leisure centre as they walk through. So we aim to do a few events there as well. So it really is about getting it into the community as well as about the carbon and the cash. So in terms of the carbon benefits, you know, typically a kilowatt on the roof will generate 800-900 of units. It'll save 170 to 200 kilograms over its year, and the data that we get back has been very useful. So there's a few data streams. We have our own data coming from the main energy meter on site. We may have sub-metering, but Energy Sparks has been a very useful tool. So that's bottom left. You can go onto the Energy Sparks website and see the data for yourselves across the UK, but it's a very cost effective. It costs doesn't cost me anything. Egni kindly pay around about £500 per annum for Energy Sparks membership. And all schools in Pembrokeshire are open to that. And that allows them to look at half-hourly data. But more than that, the Energy Sparks portal sends information. It says your baseline energy consumption seems quite high, or did you leave your boiler on over the holidays because compared to the average, it was very high, etc., etc. So it demystifies and simplifies that kind of energy management for those energy advocates in the school. And then on the right-hand side, we can talk to the solar system directly, and that's a secondary kind of system. But it's very clear what's happening in that school. You're seeing the loads increase from 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning as systems get turned on, and then the green is production, and there's a fair bit of export. Ideally we'd have east-facing panels on all our schools as well as some south. And then we could meet more of that morning demand, although there's a limit, of course, of what we can do. I'll speak a bit more about the batteries in the future, but the export Egni take, that's their money. So we spoke about Energy Sparks and this kind of high resolution of information. It's been really useful. So this is a school, you can see 5 peaks on the left-hand side, Monday through till Friday, and then a break for the weekends, and then another 5 spikes. But there is a difference, obviously. So there we have these kind of, I think they're about half-hourly mini spikes, which we track down. They're about 3 kilowatt together with the background load about 1, so giving us these 4 kilowatt spikes. And of course, what we found was that the school had received they took a gas water heater out and replaced it with an electric immersion heater water for the taps for the school. It's a very long school, and what was happening was that the hot water has been pumped continuously 24/7 around the school. And of course, as it got pumped, it cools and then it comes back to the tank, and the tank tries to heat it back up. So you had all these mini spikes. And of course, compared to the large 12, 13 kilowatt peak spikes there, that we saw, you'd say, well, it's only 3 or 4 kilowatts, but 24/7, 365 days of the year, that was costing the school anywhere between £800 to £1,000 a month of additional cost, dead money, basically. And so we adjusted the schedule, and you can see the difference in demand. And so that wouldn't have happened unless I'd poured over the data and gone through, stumbled across this in my own kind of wanderings through the streams of data that we can access. But what actually happened was the Energy Sparks notified us and said, "Are you aware of this this jump in energy use at this school?" So the schools can act upon that. Some of the larger schools, their site managers will certainly look at the schedules and adjust it. But for a smaller primary school where the head looks after 2 schools and very little understanding through the lack of training primarily of the heating systems, we were able to help them. So a tangible benefit there in terms of energy, and then in terms of the curriculum, a whole host of fantastic activities. It really is amazing, not just on energy, but focusing on food and fast fashion. Pennar School have won an award recently about their studies on waste food and the children. Far more powerful for the children to go and speak to the catering department than me sending an email internally. Far more powerful. And they've had various trips. And of course, I mentioned free access to the Energy Spark. So it's been a wonderful success story in my mind about the curriculum involvement. So effectively what we've got now, if there's 30 or 40 children in a year 6, we've got 30 or 40 energy managers who go around and turn things off and question why the heating's on a hot day, etc. So the resource that I've got really are hundreds, if not thousands, of budding energy warriors and energy managers at the school. So the project has certainly evolved over time. We're looking at batteries. Egni rather was successful in attracting about £500,000 worth of funding for batteries. We're going to install 100 kilowatt hour batteries at 5 of the sites. We've done some EV chargers, and all this is about trying to mop up as much of the generated energy. Egni have spent the money installing the solar. We want to utilise it. So we are also considering hot water, and hopefully some of that then will help us reduce some of these base loads that we see at all our schools, which are significant, a third to half of the total energy per annum. So the lessons learned since we're in a school environment, what keeps me awake are not the technical issues. Solar panels, if they're installed correctly and a decent brand, you won't have any issues with the gear, or very few. It's not the legals or the surveys or the certs. Grid connection, I think, can delay things. It may not block you, but it will delay things if you don't get involved earlier. The DNO, I think, have been very helpful. They have to be make sure that everything is correct. So that's one thing. Why was it successful? I think because it's driven by people who are capable and passionate, and they want to share the learnings and the good news. It's not about making huge amounts of profit or money, and collaboration and openness is key. So Egni share things, we share with them, we're happy to share with others. If people do want to speak to us in Pembrokeshire about the tender process, we can certainly send you a copy of the documents, etc. And then the communication and the collaboration with the schools. So and the kind of governors, if need be. That's been very, very useful. And then the devil is in the details. So I would suggest look at east-facing roofs for school if you've got an AM bias. Don't dismiss all the base load that's there. So don't just focus on your kind of solar generation. See if you can also have a double whammy and reduce base load. Yeah, keep gathering that data and feeding it back into the classroom. And that's it. Joel, thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Rhys, and Dan as well for presenting such an interesting project. Great to hear about it. Just to, as you can see from the comments, to echo those people saying, what an interesting project, brilliant project, and of course, getting children involved in terms of education, and really like kids as energy managers or energy warriors as well. That's brilliant. So we've probably got a few minutes now that we can open things up. If you do have any questions, as we've got both Dan and Rhys here with us this morning, feel free to put them in the chat if you'd like to do that, or you can raise a hand and ask a question of either of our presenters as well. So we've got a couple of minutes now, so I can open that out for any questions from our audience at all. Thanks, Dale. Right, thank you. So yeah, as usual, unfortunately, time is against us. We've run over just slightly. Apologies about that, but I think worthwhile to just have those additional questions at the end, and just for that further information. So yeah, thanks to both Dan and Rhys once again for such an interesting session. Really appreciate your time presenting for us today. Thank you. Any questions we haven't picked up in the chat, we'll try and get to those as well. As I mentioned, a copy of the slides and a recording of the presentation from the session will be available on our webpage shortly after today as well. Looking ahead, the next session, the next Climate Spotlight session will be in September. Now we're having a pause over summer whilst everyone tries to enjoy some decent weather. But of course, we'll keep you updated on dates, topics, etc. of what we've got coming up for the rest of the year. So with that, we'll bring today's session to a close. Just diolch yn fawr iawn am fynychu chi heddiw. Many thanks for attending today. Hwyl fawr, goodbye. Thank you. Diolch.
Diolch i bawb.